San Antonio Spurs are headed to the Western Conference Finals after demolishing the T-Wolves in Game 6, 139-109. Stephon Castle, boy, did he show up. 32 points, 11 rebounds. 6 times was really good in that first quarter. I mean, Victor poured in what he needed to. And Fox, Julian Champagnie. For the T-Wolves, they did not look like Wolves on this night, as not enough firepower and the defense was nowhere to be found. And with that, we welcome in CBS Sports NBA analyst Noah Bono. And Noah, I know you said Minnesota, right, going to force a Game 7, and you did admit that you weren't confident about it. But when you think about that 20-0 run that the Spurs had in that second quarter, it really was game over after that. I know the T-Wolves made a run, but that was it. Why did the Spurs have all the mojo and the energy when they were the ones up 3-2 and the T-Wolves had to fight for their season on the line and not a whole lot of fight?
They're just a better team. I think that, we get wrapped up in the storylines of wanting a Game 7 and playing into the Anthony Edwards card of, but he's great. He's back-to-back Western Conference Finals with this group, and Chris Finch, one heck of a coach. We read into some of these storylines too much, and we lose sight of what's simply right in front of us, which is that the Spurs were the better team. They've been the better team. These two teams split in the regular season, but ultimately the San Antonio Spurs punked the Minnesota Timberwolves this series. I mean, they won games by 38, 29, 30 tonight. Their average margin of victory in the 4 games in this series was 26 points per game. I mean, they really made it difficult for the Minnesota Timberwolves, especially offensively. I mean, Minnesota couldn't find the ocean. Julius Randle had one of the most unfortunate series you'll ever see a former All-Star have, and that's unfortunate for him going into this offseason, and it was unfortunate for the way he played, Jaden McDaniels played, knowing that Anthony Edwards is dealing with those injuries in both his knees, and just ultimately was not going to be able to do it on his own. Ayo Dosunmu provided a little bit of a spark, but when you look at top to bottom what the Spurs have versus what the Timberwolves had, and DiVincenzo going down and Edwards hobbled, it was a very optimistic perspective to try to think Minnesota was going to be able to push this to a 7th game. And I know that when we talked pregame, I made it known where my heart was and not wanting to doubt Minnesota, but not feeling great about them tonight, especially how they played in Game 5. And ultimately, the way that San Antonio was able to just break them down game by game by game, they just were the better team because they're the deeper team, they're the healthier team. And these guards on San Antonio are unbelievable, unbelievable. And the fact that they are where they are already with Castle in year 2 and Harper in year 1, Wemby in year 3. The Western Conference needs to be on high alert. The Oklahoma City Thunder need to be on high alert.
And we're going to get to that Western Conference Finals matchup between the Thunder and the Spurs in a bit. But let's go back to the T-Wolves here. Okay, so as they turn the page for next season, I know you brought up Julius Randle, we're having one of his worst postseasons, definitely in this game, just 3 points on 1 of 8 shooting. Where does the Minnesota Timberwolves go from here when they're trying to get back to the Western Conference Finals and then ultimately get to the NBA Finals?
We got to get healthy, right? It stinks when you get to the postseason and you're not healthy and you lose DiVincenzo, who was having such a great year, and then Anthony Edwards, your best player, is hobbled. I don't know what they'll do with Julius Randle. I don't think you throw in the towel on Julius Randle. I don't. But you see it there. He's still under contract. Do you want to trade his $30 million and get off of him? Naz Reid is under contract. That's great. Jaden McDaniels as well. I see the hole for Minnesota being at the point guard position. Can they bring back Ayo Dosunmu? I don't know, though, how much of a point guard he will really be for this team. I think what they've been lacking for the last 3 years, going back to the back-to-back Western Conference Finals appearance, was Mike Conley was running the show as the point guard. They drafted Rob Dillingham and then traded him in the middle of the season this year to the Chicago Bulls as part of when they got Dosunmu. And, I think they've really lacked at that point guard position. It's almost kind of like what we saw with the Phoenix Suns when they brought Bradley Beal in, Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker, and they thought, hey, we'll let these 3 really good, talented scorers figure it out. We won't get a point guard on the roster. We saw how that went. They got swept in the first round by Minnesota 2 years ago. I think that there's in a similar position of needing to bring in a really talented on-ball lead guard that can set everything else up for these guys. You know what you're going to get from Rudy Gobert. He's not great offensively. And when you have that, but you can supplement it with Naz Reid, that's important. But where are the rest of these pieces? Is Jaden McDaniels going to take another jump? Is he going to be more of a viable and reliable playoff performer? He was great in Game 6 versus the Denver Nuggets, but at what point do you get more of that consistent 20-plus points per game, unbelievable defense, stays on the court, is in tandem with Anthony Edwards as a wing scorer? He wasn't that in this series, and ultimately, if Julius Randle, a former All-Star, multiple-time All-Stars, playing the way he's playing, that's Jaden McDaniels got to look at that situation and go, it's on me. Like, Ant's hobbled, Julius is struggling, it's now on me, and that didn't happen in this series. So I think overall you got to find something at the point guard position. Can you bring in more depth in that perimeter guard spot behind Anthony Edwards, have another scoring punch that they didn't have? But they're not in a horrible spot, right? The last 3 years, you're talking about losing in the second to the last round 2 times in a row, and then in the Western Conference semis. Like, they're not in a bad spot. They're just in a really tough conference.
Yeah, the Western Conference is a bloodbath. Now, when you think about this series coming up, Thunder, Spurs, we know San Antonio won the regular season series 4-1. Probably doesn't mean a whole lot. Perhaps it does. But how do you see this series playing out between the defending champs and San Antonio, who is ahead of schedule?
This is going to be a showdown. I mean, this very well could be one of the best playoff series we get in the 2020s. I just think that the way these two teams match up against one another, how good Oklahoma City has played for a chunk of this postseason, given that they have not lost yet, and they don't even have their second best player in Jalen Williams, who I would expect to be healthy by the time this series starts. I go back to when these two teams played in the in-season tournament, the NBA Cup, and Victor Wembanyama was coming back from an injury. He had 22 points in 21 minutes off the bench. Their backcourt of Vassell, De'Aaron Fox, and Stephon Castle combined for 67 points in that game. And they beat the Thunder by 2. And that was the kind of coming out party for this San Antonio team this past season, before they ended up beating them 3 more times. I think that the experience I was touching on with Minnesota hopefully coming into play for them tonight in a game on their back against the wall trying to stave off elimination, it wasn't there. But I think that that's going to be a real hurdle for San Antonio to get over when they play the Oklahoma City Thunder, because they are experienced. They did the dance in 2024 when they lost in 6 to Luka and the Mavs. Then they win the championship last year. They play in 2 different 7-game series. They're battle tested, obviously, when you win a championship and you go through that much during a post. That's not going to work in San Antonio's favor, and they're going to have their back against the wall at one point or another. The difference is that Oklahoma City does not have a 7'5" freak in Victor Wembanyama. So the advantage does go to San Antonio in my mind in this series. They've had the Thunder's number. They didn't allow the Thunder to speed them up, to turn them over, and to play into the hand of Oklahoma City where they create points off turnovers. San Antonio didn't do that in those 5 matchups, and I think as long as they can stay the course where they were in the regular season, they got a really good chance to win this series. And I wouldn't be surprised if they won it in 6 games back in San Antonio in Game 6, if I were to make an early prediction.
Okay, all right, we'll see, man. Yeah, and we got the rivalry right between Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren. It is going to be fantastic hoops between OKC and San Antonio. Noah Bono, always appreciate the insight, brother.
See you, man. Thank you.
And look at this. This is the first conference finals between 62-win teams since 1981, when the Celtics and the 76ers went at it, and now the Thunder and the Spurs